It's Friday, September the 20th, 2024, and this is a morning after video. So it's an addendum to the video, the election of a commander-in-chief of the United States military and militia, which I made last night after watching the rally with Kamala Harris and Oprah Winfrey. And as you can see, I have been up this morning just thinking more about it, and I wasn't sure I was going to be able to make a video because I'm like, I don't even, it's the same, I'm saying the same thing over and over and over and over. And it just, the monotony of it really gets to me. Because this is how I know that the earth is dying. I really, really, really don't want to be here. But it's as if, me dying to get out of this place is not an option. So, I mean, I get that part, but it's, what I've been saying to myself over and over is like, why won't you let me go? Like, just why won't you let me go? Because, you come to a point where you really are clear that you just do not want the same things. Even if you wanted the same things before, you don't want the same things anymore for whatever reason. And I've tried to understand that, like, why, when people want a paradise worldwide, and people say, we want it, but you have to do something. You have to change. You have to care about what other people want, especially if the things that they want are for you to let go of things that are toxic for everybody. I think about just the rally. It was such a good representation of the mentality of, at least people in America. I want to, because of some of the things that the celebrities were saying about their interactions with people internationally. It's the whole earth is dying. Everybody sort of. But it was, we're going to talk about this really traumatic stuff that we want change, and, and then this sort of implication that, as the president, we are looking for you to be our savior and to save us from this, which is something I've constantly told people cannot be the solution. One person cannot make all of these changes, because you still have to deal with everybody in the same mindset doing the same things that are causing the problems in the first place. It has to be a commitment of 100% of the people. Otherwise, you're going to constantly be trying to fix things or restore things over and over and over. It's just, and but then, how, listening to these very traumatic disclosures, it's like, it's not something I would watch with my children, or I would want to watch with my children, especially when they were younger, because of how devastating the kinds of things that people shared were. But, on the other side of that, I think to myself, maybe if people understand, how the things that are going on that I've talked about exhaustively are actually impacting people. I said in a video that I did, I don't know, several months ago, one of the first videos where I was crying and just trying to be as authentic as I could be about how I was feeling, that, even as a therapist, I would have the kids look at me, because I needed them to see and have them emotionally connect with me so that they understood the impact of what they were doing on me personally. Like, you need to face it, face my tears, face my sadness, my disappointment, my hopelessness, face it, and then decide how you feel about it and whether or not you want to allow it to continue to happen to me or anybody else. But you hear these people disclosing this very traumatic information about things that they're going through. And a lot of it, like currently, they were there talking about things that just occurred, when most people, you would have to have resolved it or had it been over long enough that you have been able to recover and try to rebuild a life without that loss. Well, you can't, well, the loss is there, but without that person being there, for example, um, what is like after. But this has just happened. And then to try to transition out of it, I guess, to allow these different points to be made into, people with this, oh, you need to get out and be your own organizer and talk to your family about, voting and why it's important and why you're voting for Kamala. And, it's sick. If you think of it like if you kind of put it in the context of like a group therapy session, it was even put in a circle, in a huge circle with Kamala and Oprah in the center, and what that would feel like being in that group, because there were lots of people there obviously who did not speak but were there to witness it and to hear it, and to either nod in agreement that yes, I understand because I experienced the same thing, or I didn't even know that was happening, kind of thing. So informative in that way. But then to have somebody else in the group say, oh, and we need to really start organizing and tell people why we need to vote, and da, da, da. There were no actionable plans discussed. I mean, Kamala, she she even contradicted herself in the beginning by saying, you don't help people, or you don't make change by the number of people you beat down, but by the number of people you lift up. But then she spent every response she gave, she had to include Donald Trump. And he did this and he did this and he did this. But we want this and we want this, which, I mean, it's not. And even the things that she said are not actionable. As I said in the video last night, those things are not the responsibility. It's not the responsibility of the president to legislate anything. It wouldn't make sense for that's a monarchy, that's a kingship. If the president makes all of those kinds of decisions and makes those things, that's why we have, if you talk about democracy, that's what, why we have so many people in Congress who are supposed to represent the people in their individual states, to speak up and say, this is what's happening where we live and we need this. And then that it was in Michigan and everything that's still going on in Flint. Anyway, I just I think Doug kind of put a nail in the coffin for me, because I understand that, I don't know what I would call it, that level of arrested development emotionally. When someone, it's not even that you don't care about what I want. And that's a big part of it. I need for people to care about what I want. And I'm not saying that, as though it's everybody else's responsibility to tend to my needs, speaking on behalf of every woman. But it kind of is. Because if you cared about what I need and what I want, if you work with my husband, for example, you would be encouraging him to be a good husband. If he came to work and he started talking about problems at home, your mindset would be, that's your wife and that's your family, and I know you love them. And so, I'm not even going to allow this conversation to go in a direction that would take you out of that mindset or would encourage you to do something that's going to be detrimental to your wife or your kids. But that's not how people think or how people interact with each other at work. But they, you talk about how, how much men have to stay away from home for work to support their family. So, their work coworkers become like a second family. And if the people there are having the same kinds of conversations, then it creates a level of stagnation and discord for people at home that perpetuates the issues at home. I hope that makes sense to someone. And understanding why people like the President of the United States, who has control over how military families are organized and how much time service members have to spend away from their families, that's completely under the purview of the president. Those are the kinds of issues. Government contracts for Department of Defense and the people who fulfill those contracts, that's completely under the purview of the President of the United States. They do have control over that. Biden has control over that. And I said last night, I kept speaking as if Kamala was already president, but she is the vice president. And so she should have a voice in speaking to these kinds of issues. But there was no actionable plan. Even the mother who, was willing to share, her experience with her daughter there, who, was also willing to share her experience, but clearly suffering the ramifications of the trauma she experienced as she even tried to disclose what happened. She couldn't say out loud, we need to get rid of guns. For whatever reason. I don't know. It could be that she wasn't thinking that way, or it just, didn't make sense to her with all of that emotion sitting inside of her to say that out loud. But that's what needs to be said. And it's okay for her to say, I don't know exactly how we can get rid of the guns, but we need to do it. Because if you get rid of all of the weapons, then the people who are causing those kinds of problems might also be saved like Doug, because you don't have access. You can't get to them. So then you have to come up with something else. And in the time that it might take you to come up with something else, maybe somebody could intervene and talk to you and figure out why it is you feel like you need to do that. I don't understand why people don't. This is how I know the earth is dying. I don't want anything else. I cannot settle for anything less than paradise worldwide. I can't. Because without it, children will continue to suffer. And they deserve that. We deserve it. And what really hurts me is that it is 100% possible. It's not hard. It starts at home. It will always start at home. 100% of the time it starts at home. The people who are around your husband or your wife, the people who are around your children when you aren't. That's your community. When neighbors don't care about each other, they don't even know each other. I know the earth is dying because people, even if everywhere else in the world, which is outside of my visual perception, is doing better, it only takes one person, one country to perpetuate the issues that contribute to the misery everyone experiences here. Trauma is the is the goal. Why? Why? What kind of people want to inflict trauma on other people? It's like you aren't human anymore. You can't see other living beings, humans, animals, as valuable. I want to end by sharing the clip from Meryl Streep in the rally last night, because I think that's it sent me over the edge, because the tone of what she was saying is, this is to be continued. I hadn't got to that part last night when I made my reactionary video, but but she's right, we look forward to the next 47 days and then what? Because we had all of this excitement back in 2008 and then again in 2012. And nothing's changed.
Meryl Streep, hello. You and I. Hi, Meryl Streep. You and I have talked about this moment. Hi. How are you feeling? How are you feeling about the momentum?
Oh, man, this has been overwhelming to have the privilege to sit in and listen to the testimony of the people here. Hello, President Harris.
Not yet. 47 days. 47 days, yes.
From my mouth to God's ear. And hello, Oprah. I think the word of the day has been preventable. Preventable. All of this, the surround of hatred and venom and toxicity and encouraging some segment of Americans to hate other segment of Americans. It's just crazy, and nobody wants it. We're done.
That's right.
We're done with it. I wanted to ask you, I can't believe I have this opportunity. I probably never will again. If I have a little Debbie Downer moment, because actually, I think you're going to win. I'm sure you're going to win. But what happens when you win and he doesn't accept it? And you know that there's going to be this long slog of shenanigans. And I'm wondering how we get to that moment, how we preserve certification on January 6th. Because if it doesn't happen, it'll be maybe thrown back to the legislatures of the states. And I've been working with state government citizens campaign, which is sgcamerica.com. So they're great. They're doing the unglamorous down ballot work of promoting those candidates, because I'm worried about it, and I wonder if we're ready for January 7th, 8th, 9th, and what happens? What happens?
So we will be ready, but just taking a step back, and thank you, Marilyn, for just the gift that you give, your talent, your creativity. Thank you for being here. One of the things that I have realized in the course of our campaign is that more Americans than we may realize who voted for Trump before have decided January 6th was just a bridge too far. When we reflect and think about what January 6th was, where the President of the United States, sitting in the Oval Office, incited a mob, a violent mob, to attack the United States Capitol, such that 140 law enforcement officers were injured, some were killed. To try and upend a free and fair election where the American people voted, that was a bridge too far for a lot of people. And we have sadly now seen how far he could go. And I think there is absolutely no tolerance whatsoever for the vast majority of Americans for that. And they've seen the lies. They understand, for example, almost every court case, I think every court case where he's challenged an election, he lost. I said on the debate stage, look, because he's having a very difficult time, obviously, processing the fact that 81 million people fired him, right? But, so there is that it really was a bridge too far for so many people that they are not willing to repeat. But the other piece of it is the lawyers are working. It's very important that we all speak to our friends and our neighbors about misinformation and help them now see how it occurs, where it is occurring. It is important that we stand up for the integrity of poll workers and people who are working on election day. And that we also, and this is critically important, that we ask people to be alert about mis and disinformation, and we ask them, do not be afraid to vote. Because I think there is also something quite insidious about these attacks on the electorate in these various forms that are intended to convince people that their vote won't matter. And in that way, there's a little bit of reverse psychology going on here, and let's just make sure nobody falls for it. Your vote does matter, and we cannot let anyone ever take our power from us. We can never let anybody silence us. And when we get those votes out, starting soon, early voting is already going to start this week, I think, through November 5th, and let's make sure everyone votes, and we are going to have a good election day. We're going to fight for the integrity of the people's voice and for our democracy. And, you know, I'll just mention earlier, a couple of folks talked about what this means in terms of the world. You know, Oprah, as vice president, I've met over 150 world leaders, presidents, prime ministers, chancellors, and kings. And the thing about representing the United States of America is when we walk in those rooms around the world, we have historically and traditionally been able to walk in those rooms, chin up, shoulders back, with the self-appointed and earned authority to talk about the importance of democracies. People around the world are watching right now. Because you see, the thing about walking into a room and being a role model is people watch what you do to see if it lines up with what you say. And in that way, the consequences of this election are directly going to impact the American people and people around the world. That's what we're fighting for, and those are the stakes. And that's why we're going to win, because we know what we're fighting for, because we know what we stand for.
Thank you, Meryl. So